Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila HG Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Buddhikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. So we'll be on page 602 tonight. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 29th day of September, 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 15 entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 10 on page 602. Utkramantam stitam vapi bunjanam Vagunanvitam Vimudha Nanupashyanti Pashyanti Jnana Chakshushaha Utkramantam Stitam Vapi Bunjanam Vagunanvitam Vimudha Nanupashyanti Pashyanti Jnana Chakshushaha Utkramantam Stitam Vapi Bunjanam Vagunanvitam Vimudhananu Pashyanti Pashyanti Jnana Chakshushaha Utkramantam Stitam Vapi Bunjanam Vagunanvitam Vimudhananu Pashyanti Pashyanti Jnana Chakshushaha We're done. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimodhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusaha. Time out. Prabhus, don't put the sheets on the floor. Yeah, they're sacred. Yeah, you can just give them back. Okay. You didn't know. Go ahead, Ishadev. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimodhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusaha. Go ahead. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudha vimudhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Dimitri. Utramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusha. You don't have to know Sanskrit to go back to God, and let's just remember that. But it helps because. Anyone over here? Do you want to try? Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhanana pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Jessica?
Prabhu.
Not today.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Fantastic. Utkramantam stitam vapi
Utkramantam stitam vapi
bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. Vijay Krishna, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananu pashyanti jnana
chakshusha. Utkramantam, quitting the body. Stitam, situated in the body. Va api, either. Bhunjanam, enjoying. Va or guna anvitam, under the spell of the modes of material nature. Vimudha, foolish persons. Na, never. Anupashyanti, can see. Pashyanti, can see. Jnana chakshushaha, those who have the eyes of knowledge. Translation. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. Purport. The word jnana chakshusha is very significant. Without knowledge, one cannot understand how a living entity leaves his present body, nor what form of body he is going to take in the next life, nor even why he is living in a particular type of body. This requires a great amount of knowledge understood from the Bhagavad Gita and similar literatures heard from a bona fide spiritual master. One who is trained to perceive all these things is fortunate.
Every living entity is quitting his body under certain circumstances. He is living under certain circumstances, and he is enjoying under certain circumstances under the spell of material nature. As a result, he is suffering different kinds of happiness and distress under the illusion of sense enjoyment. Persons who are everlastingly fooled by lust and desire lose all power to understand their change of body and their stay in a particular body. They cannot comprehend it. Those who have developed spiritual knowledge, however, can see that the spirit soul is different from the body and is changing its body and enjoying in different ways. A person in such knowledge can understand how the conditioned living entity is suffering in this material existence. Therefore, those who are highly developed in Krishna consciousness try their best to give this knowledge to the people in general, for their conditional life is very much troublesome. They should come out of it and be Krishna conscious and liberate themselves to transfer to the spiritual world. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of the Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession of realized gurus. So, here Krishna is, he's telling us the importance of knowledge. And not just knowledge, but he's saying Jnana Chakshush. This is part of the theme that we're encountering in the 13th chapter. Remember where there's all those who see through the eyes of knowledge can understand how the super soul and soul are within every body. And those who don't have that knowledge can't see properly. I always like to give the example from my own insignificant life, how when I was a child, I grew up near New York City. And when I got to be a little older and adolescent, I started to go into the city to all the museums. You know, New York City is famous for its museums. The Museum of Modern Art, the Museum of Natural History, and so many museums. So I remember seeing some very classic art. They had some Rembrandts, and you know, the beauty of it was there and so forth, you know. But then when I got a little older, my parents brought me these books about all of the intricacies of fine art, what it means, what he's trying to say here, how the lighting is affecting this. And all. There were so many things to understand. And so when I went to the museum, I would see with that knowledge, and it would have more meaning to me. Even these paintings here, someone walks in the temple, they see this is some fine art. But what does this mean? This tall devotee with like a golden complexion dancing in the middle. They won't know the significance. But devotees who have read some of the literature, they've been in the movement for a while, oh, that's Lord Chaitanya. Those are his intimate associates, and he's chanting Hare Krishna on the streets of Bengal. They know so much. It has more meaning when you increase your knowledge. So we don't just see through the physical eye, but we see through knowledge. Even as we grow up, it's so obvious children, they live in a different world. You know, bound up by their relation with the parents and so forth in the house, and they're at a much lower level, first of all. Everyone's so tall, you know. And it's a different world. So your consciousness is deeply affecting what you experience in the world and how you see especially. So here he's referring to this essential knowledge of the living entity and how he's leaving one body and going into another. This transmigration of the soul, which is essential first step, lesson A of the ABCs that Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita. So the word bunjana, now this is interesting because there may be a little confusion or puzzlement from the purport. Because here it says, the foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. Now, I don't know if it's English, because Prabhupada learned English in the early 20th century at Scottish Churches College. He learned before that, but there was reading so much English literature there. And there's a slight difference in the language they speak in UK than we have here. There are some very important differences. And so here, this word enjoys can also be read as experiences. Because certainly we're not just enjoying under the spell of modes of nature, we're also suffering. And that comes out in the purport. So if he's enjoying, how can he speak of suffering? So it's those two. We hope to enjoy and not suffer, but inevitably, this is what happens when you have a material body. Suffering comes along with it. That's just the nature of the beast. There is what these four inevitable concomitants to having a physical body. Birth, every body takes birth, not just human bodies, every body comes, then grows. So as you grow older, then eventually you start aging, so there's old age, and then there's disease, and then there's death. And then it starts all over again. It's not just one time around. YOLO is wrong, right? Isn't it? Aren't they t-shirts? Meaning, YOLO, you only live once, so enjoy as much as you can, get as much. Yeah. I remember when I grew up, there was a beer commercial like that, right? You only go around once in life, so grab all the gusto you can get, and you have a beer in your ear. Right? Advertising. So that's hedonism. There's a philosophy. We're only going around once. Prabhupada would quote an ancient Indian philosopher about that, Charvak Muni. He has Muni by his name. And he was saying, listen, there's no such thing as transmigration. There's no such thing as karma. So get as much ghee as you can. In Indian enjoyment, ghee is so important in cooking, you know. Get as much ghee if you can afford it, then beg, borrow, steal. Get ghee and enjoy as much as possible. And then you're all done and you're finished. That's hedonism, pure and simple. But Krishna, immediately, the idea of transmigration and karma cuts off that idea. Means that, yes, you can enjoy a little bit now, but if you're violating the laws of nature and the laws of God, and you commit sin, what we call sin, then you're going to suffer like anything. I always come back to this key verse in the 5th chapter, where Krishna says, Yehi sangsbhajita bhoga dukkha yona evate. He says that the pleasures that we experience with our senses are the very sources of our misery, of our suffering. And they have a beginning and an end, and therefore the wise don't delight in them. Now the question could immediately arise, well, what do the wise delight in? Well, they just try to become completely ascetic and never enjoy anything, and that's success. That's also a philosophy. But that's not our philosophy. That's not Krishna's philosophy. Because in the previous verse, he says, here's how the yogis enjoy. Bhaya sparshe sasaktatma, vindat yatmana yat sukham, sab brahma yoga yuktatmam, sukham akshayam ashnute. Now here he says that the wise, the Buddha, they eschew, they deny these flickering pleasures of the senses. This is bhaya sparshesu, means the contacting the sense object with the senses externally. Vindat yatmana, but they're enjoying the pleasure within. There's a pleasure, there's a spiritual pleasure there. God is there in the heart. Krishna is there. He speaks that in the 13th chapter. Upadarshtanam. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul, overseeing, permitting, giving intelligence and remembrance. That'll come up in this chapter. So when we can contact that spiritual source, then we can open up the doors to unlimited happiness. And that's what he says in this verse. The wise, they're not attracted to this external, flickering, sensual pleasure. Vindat yatmana yat sukham. They're enjoying the happiness, sukha, within. Sukham, sab brahma yoga yuktatma. Linked up in yoga, in this case bhakti yoga, to the Brahman, supreme Brahman, which is the personality of Godhead, not some white light. Sukham akshayam ashnute. They enjoy unbreakable happiness. So, as yogis, as devotees, we don't deny happiness, but we avoid this flickering, illusory happiness of the senses, which just perpetuates your misery in this world. We're just reading in the morning class, in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya apnoti. Some of you here this morning may recall that. So what Rishabdev says, who's an incarnation of Krishna, he says certainly those human beings who simply are dedicated to sense pleasure are mad. Because they're acting against their own best interests. Because you're sure to get another material body, which is sure to bring you the miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death, and all other kinds of miseries. You know, there's also other categories, but those are the basic ones. So then, what's the alternative? The alternative is developing, is weaning away your senses and your mind and your soul from the flickering experience of temporary happiness, and directing that enjoying energy toward Krishna. Meaning that, and this is where it really becomes interesting, because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Krishna said in text 7 here, Mamai Vangsa Jiva Loke, that every living entity is my part and parcel. Meaning that we're inevitably connected to Krishna. And when we give Krishna enjoyment, we enjoy spiritually. And that enjoyment doesn't end. If God is anything, He's got to be the supreme enjoyer. Why would He do anything against His own interests? So he's on in the Vedanta Sutra. Vedanta Sutra means aphorisms that embody the culmination of all Vedic knowledge. And one of the sutras there describes Anandamayo Bhyasat. That supreme Brahman, the source of everything, is always filled with Ananda. Always. Why would if you're God, would you have periods of misery voluntarily? You're in control of everything. Why would you? You know? But what is that real super enjoyment? It's not just wallowing, in your own bliss. It's interaction. It's loving exchange. That's the source of happiness here. Whatever flickering happiness we really can find is that. But that unfortunately ends by the force of time. Any relationship here is eventually broken. Even when you get married, isn't they still say, till death do us part? Well, then what happens? What happened to all the happiness from the marriage? Not there anymore. So we want that loving relationship, as Krishna does, that doesn't end, that's always fulfilling, ever fresh, and that's what Krishna enjoys forever. So when we join Him again in that enjoyment of relationship, in all kinds of lila. Lila means something you just play. Lila is what you do on the weekend, or try to do it anyway. Completely voluntary. I want to do this, I want to do that, right? It has so many limitations when we do it. But Krishna's lila are perfectly arranged, so everyone's happy in the spiritual world. So that we have a place there. We've lost it. We want to try to regain it. That's our natural place in existence. Not this ever-changing Bhavasagara, the ocean of change, means birth, old age, disease, and death. That's what I have in store. That's what your body has in store. But you, as a soul, can be transcend that and break free from the bonds of birth and death and go back to Godhead. So here, Krishna is what he's saying here. This knowledge is essential. Jnana chakshush. There's another phrase, Shastra chakshush, which is very similar. Seeing through the eyes of Shastra. We want to try to train ourselves to see the world and see ourselves through the eyes of Shastra. For instance, in the 7th chapter of this book, Krishna tells Arjuna at the beginning, now I'm going to tell you how you can train your mind to be attached to me, not to be attached to things of this world. Because in the previous chapter, he gave an outline of traditional yoga. Going off to the mountains, seclusion, sitting down. He talked about that with your face, with your back straight, and then concentrating on the super self within, who is none other than me, and all of these different things. And Arjuna says, for me, it's impossible. Chanchalam himana Krishna pamadi balavadram. The mind is too flickering. It's too powerful. It's like trying to control the wind. You sit down and just, if you didn't have Hare Krishna to think about, what are you going to do? Can you think about some mandala, some designs and white light? Nothing? You ever try to think of nothing? I tried it. It's not possible. Think of nothing now, Daniel. You can't, right? Well, you maybe can, because you can easily fall asleep. I'm just kidding. But the point is, that's not the answer. We want to think about the all-attractive personality of Godhead. If you read about Krishna's, childhood Leela, I gave this verse. No one else ever quotes this verse in the class. This is the description of Krishna crawling in the yard of his father in Vrindavan, and just delighting everyone, with his playful pastimes, and he's all attractive. That's what Krishna means. So the verse goes like this: Jnana Navishashu Leela Lankita Hayana Gaga Vishkata Nama Rasayana Ring and the Manda the Nandaketa the Munani Batapa the Goka the Chaitana. You can't do that in any other language but Sanskrit. There's a whole series of, this is a nice summary of Krishna's Vrindavan Leela by Rupa Goswami. He's given us. So he's describing there, those who know something about Krishna Leela, after a year of little baby Leela, where he killed 3 demons, Putana, the cart demon, and this tornado demon named Trinavarta. And everyone was amazed because they didn't know he's God. He's this little baby, high up into the sky, 3,000 feet. And the mother Yashoda was crying on the ground, wailing in agony, where's my boy, where's my boy? And boom, crash comes this huge demon and gets smashed on a stone. And there's little baby Krishna playing on the body of the demon. You can imagine how relieved Mother Yashoda is, she comes, picks him up, it's a miracle. Then they had all kinds of Brahmins come, chant all kind of mantras for his protection. They don't know he's God. They just see him as a little all-attractive child. So after a whole year of this adventurous Leela, Garga Muni comes. He's the priest of the whole dynasty to perform a name-giving ceremony as part of the Vedic culture. But they have to do it in secret, otherwise they may suspect that he's the son of Vasudeva. So that's what the verse starts. After a whole year of Leela, very full, adventurous Leela, Garga Muni came and gave him the nectarian names. And then the second line is what, it never grows old, Ringanamanda Nandana. And with his crawling, he decorated the yard of his father, Nanda Maharaj. Ringanamanda Nandana Madanimatapata Gokula Chaitana. And with his sweet beauty and personality, he delighted the minds of everyone in Gokula. Now, that's God. You tell me that's God. Yeah. That's God playing, covering his divinity, so that he can enjoy these intimate, loving pastimes with his great devotees, who also don't know he's God. They're not doing it out of awe and veneration, praying for something, or out of fear. No. It's all out of love. That's what bhakti is about. And that love can continue and expand unlimitedly, only in the spiritual world, only in relation to Krishna. So that's Jnana Chakshusha. So back to the 7th chapter. In the 7th chapter, we have to be train the mind to always be attracted to Krishna. So part of that is seeing him everywhere. He really is everywhere. But the main way that he is everywhere is through his energies. When we see the sun, the light of the sun, say, we can say, oh, this is how powerful it is, how essential it is, warming and making the plants grow and everything. So Krishna says, I am the light of the sun. We chanted Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I am the Om syllable in the Vedas, so important. I'm the fragrance of the earth. I'm the intelligence of man. All of these different things. So if we remember that when we go through this our daily life, we can be seeing the divine everywhere. We can transcendentalize our vision, because there's nothing else really but God and his energies. Just like the sunshine is everywhere, and it's so important. So this world that we live in, including ourselves, are part of the energy of the Lord. Now, if we're devotees, then that becomes a very enlivening understanding, because you're never separated from your beloved Lord. This is part of what it means. But if you don't have that knowledge, then you would get the illusion of separation. We're never separated, whether we know it or not. But to realize that connection and be aware of it and live in it, that's what Bhakti Yoga means. So here Krishna is saying, without that Jnana Chakshush, that vision that's informed with knowledge, or Shastra Chakshu, the vision formed through the scripture, then we remain vimudha. We cannot see what's actually happening. And if we're befooled in that way, then we're bound to suffer, because we just get ourselves more and more entangled in this world, and then we eventually die, have to take birth again, and who knows what our fate would be, because we're doing everything blind. Just like if you don't know, if you get a car. I remember when I inherited a car. So the first thing I did was pull out the owner's manual. Where's this? How does this work? Is there a spare back there? How do you get to the spare? If you just drive, you get, oh, it's my car, just driving blind, you know. It's danger. Or if you don't know, the classic example, I learned, you know, as soon as you go to India, you say, hey, they drive on the left side of the road there. So when you're crossing the road, you know, you don't look left and right, you look right and left, otherwise you can get, because they're coming on the left side. So you have to know what's going on, so that you can be successful in any environment. So we need the owner's manual, not the owner's manual, but the guidebook, which is Bhagavad Gita, and that's preliminary. Then there's other guidebooks we have, but how we can negotiate our time in this world, spend it the best way to reawaken that connection with the divine, which is there, but we've forgotten it, and in this way become confident that actually we can achieve success in this life. And the wonderful thing is, nothing is ever lost. Whatever you have materially in this world is taken away. You may be a multi-billionaire or a pauper on the street, but when you leave this body, you leave it all behind. You know, anything you've accumulated, any relationships, any honor, any money, property, it stays here. You go according to your activities to the future body. It may not be so congenial. So how can we live in this world in such a way that we're not paving the way for a painful future, but we're actually making progress? And Krishna says, whatever progress you make, you pick up that in the next life. Spiritually, nothing is ever lost. Materially, everything is lost. So why put our hopes and our plans and our aspirations in the material side? So that's all part of this jnana chakshush. And we need to be able to see that and understand the process of karma reincarnation. And that way we can get serious about committing ourselves to making progress in this path. Okay, we'll leave it there because I want to leave time for any questions or comments, both locally and remote.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, go ahead, Vijay.
Yes, Prabhu. The quote from the translation is, quote, "The foolish cannot understand," end quote. So my question is, why is it that in the context of this verse, the people who have no actual knowledge are categorized as fools, when we know that, and I'm asking this question because generally speaking, fools, they live in the lunatic asylums, but and okay, they are diseased, they do not have actual knowledge, but many people, they do not live in the lunatic asylums. They have a normal life, they go to their jobs, they have family life, although they also do not have actual knowledge. So who are the fools in the context of this verse?
Well, I think that you miscalculated. I don't know if you've ever actually been in a lunatic asylum.
No, never.
But there's different rooms. There's different floors. Some are not as crazy as others, but then some really need to be restrained, and they're suffering. They're torturing themselves mostly, you know. So Prabhupada certified this world as a lunatic asylum for those who have no jnana chakshu, knowledge. In other words, anyone who's come here, this is again, we go back to the morning class, the verse that Vijay spoke on, I think a few days ago on Tuesday. Was it? No, it was Monday. Who gave class on Monday? I did. Anyway, the verse says, "Nunam pramatta kudate vikarma." The word pramatta means completely mad. You know that, Vijay? But the word matta just means mad. So there are degrees of madness that he's talking about. And he uses the word vimuda, not just muda. The prefix v intensifies, means very. So very foolish, they cannot see. And the standard is, you know, this came up early on in the movement, when I think it was one of the parents of his new initiates was complaining that this is crazy. What are you doing? You're getting involved with this cult and all this and that, you know. So Prabhupada, he responded to that. He heard what was going on. So he wrote a little essay, or I think gave a talk. It became printed. Who is crazy? Who is really crazy? Right? And the standard was simple. If you think you're something you're not, and you're living in that illusion, you're crazy. I mean, the standard is someone's walking around thinking Napoleon, right? Someone else is convinced he's Christ, right? Nowadays, people want to be Hitler, maybe. Whatever. Pick someone and you go, well, then if you really get into it and you really believe it, then they'll pick you up. You can't be walking around like that. But the fact is that everyone is thinking they're the body, but none of us are the body. So it's just the degrees of madness. Now, we just read chapter 14, where he talks about the modes of nature, and the mode of ignorance, one of the effects is madness, right? So if you can imagine, within the lunatic asylum, you have a place where the really crazies stay. They're always under sedation, they're guarded, they're locked up, right? Others have privileges. So it's just a question of degree. Until we wake up to the idea that we're souls, that we're spirit souls, and that we have to act as spirit souls, and that we need to approach a source of knowledge that will teach us, then we're more or less vimudhas, fools and rascals, and sometimes even mad. So it's not. Krishna's not being insulting here. He's giving an accurate view of things. They don't see because they have no exposure or understanding of the Shastra, and they're not seeing properly. Jnana chakshus, with the vision of knowledge. So we want to acquire that vision of knowledge. And when we act on what we hear, then we develop it as a second nature. That's the whole idea of Krishna conscious training. Anything else?
Prabhu, again, spectacular answer to my question. Thank you very much.
I got a spectacular gold star. All right, let's go on. Text number 11. Yatanto yoginas chainam pashyantyatman yavastitam yatanto pyakutatmano nainam pashyantya chetasaha. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try. Purport. There are many transcendentalists on the path of spiritual self-realization, but one who is not situated in self-realization cannot see how things are changing in the body of the living entity. The word yogina is significant in this connection. In the present day, there are many so-called yogis, and there are many so-called associations of yogis, but they are actually blind in the matter of self-realization. They are simply addicted to some sort of gymnastic exercise and are satisfied if the body is well built and healthy. They have no other information. They are called yatanto pyakutatmana. Even though they're endeavoring in a so-called yoga system, they are not self-realized. Such people cannot understand the process of the transmigration of the soul. Only those who are actually in the yoga system and have realized the self, the world, and the Supreme Lord, in other words, the bhakti yogis, those engaged in pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness, can understand how things are taking place. We're on page 604. Michael? 604? Okay. So, this is, again, Krishna's emphasizing the point. But here he's saying that you can be striving with great enthusiasm. This word yatanto comes up again and again. So, if you're actually practicing a transcendentalist, according to the science of Bhakti Yoga, then your endeavors will bear the fruit of self-realization. They can see in the self. They can see the difference between the self and the body, and they can live on that. But others may be endeavoring very much, but without the right information, they are not able to see. So it's not just endeavor that counts. You have to be. It's like, oh, now I'm really cooking. I'm going 70 miles an hour. Yeah, but you're going in the wrong direction. You're getting farther from your destination than someone who's just standing by the side of the road, right? So you can't. So endeavor is important, but endeavor with knowledge. So many people, the mode of passion, right? Remember? So much effort to succeed materially. Name, fame, material wealth, It takes a lot of effort and control, intelligence, all that. But without the guidance from above, from Krishna, through his representatives, through the book, you're going to be getting more deeply involved in material energy. Just endeavor is not enough. So that's what Krishna is making the distinction here. He uses the word yatanto at the beginning of both lines. But if you need to be endeavoring with information, with knowledge, then you can have some success. So minds are not developed who are not situated in self-realization. So this word self-realization, it's important to understand what that means in the context of this bhakti yoga. We ran out of books, huh? You okay? All right. That's all right. We're going to get some more. These books are out of date. We've done some important revisions. We're going to get a new set of books. So we want to be given a process that we know will work. Now Prabhupada talks here about three things. Understanding, what real understanding means. It means understanding where everything came from. What is the source of everything? And that's a whole study. We have a longer book called the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the third canto, we already read this in our morning class months ago, maybe a year ago. The teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. How did this world come about? What's the origin of everything? And it describes the amazing process through sound. In the beginning was the word. There's some truth to that. In the beginning was Om. Yes, that is the original sound that gradually produces all the creation that we see here. And how that happens, it's a fascinating science, But that kind of understanding helps us to ground our faith, because it's not just that Kapila Dev spoke it, but that it's understood and accepted and realized by a whole line of great bhakti yogis that would be coming. Srila Prabhupada's guru, and you go all the way back to some of the great sages of antiquity. They're all understanding in the same way how this world came about. So the source, what this world is, as I described, Krishna gives a little summary in the 7th chapter. It's all my energy, and they're interacting in all kinds of complicated ways. Under my subordinates, yes, there's something called Durga. She's the goddess of this material world, consort of Shiva. All of these demigods are real too, but they're all part of the huge bureaucracy that Krishna sets up for running this material world, so that he can just play in Goloka Vrindavan. He expands, not just also in different Vishnu forms. It's all very fascinating the way it happens. So, but this is the foundation of knowledge. What is this? What is this world? Who am I? How am I? Why am I suffering? How can I end it? What's real enjoyment? What's this world? What's my relation to it? And what's the source of everything in relation? This is called Sambandha Gyan, the first stages, and it includes knowledge of the soul, of the super soul, of the different energies. This is all part of the science of bhakti. And on the basis of that knowledge, then when you strive in the right direction, you can be confident of making progress, and depending on your sincerity and determination, the success. Success is defined very simply. Ending the process of birth and death, of being entrapped in this samsara chakra, and going back home, back to Godhead, regaining our original spiritual identity called Swarup, Siddha Swarup, the perfection of our actual identity, which is not this body. This body is just like a coat we're wearing. And resuming our eternal loving relationship with God in the spiritual world, which is the source of all bliss. We can't even imagine how happy we'll be at that. Whatever we enjoy here is just a flickering indication of that. And we have, our great spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, showed us how you can live even in this world fearlessly, not being disturbed, equipoised, peaceful, but at the same time very, very joyful and happy within. That's why he was able to attract thousands of followers. Because everyone wondered, well, how can I get some of that? And the process is centered on and the central process of chanting this mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. The very name Krishna is said to be non-different from Krishna himself. If you chant that sound, you're associating with the divine directly. And Krishna means all attractive and the source of all bliss and happiness. So we have that quality. We've just lost touch with it. We're looking to regain it through matter, but it's not available here. We have to learn how to contact the spirit, which is there, but we can't contact it. So the process centers on that chanting. And if we take it seriously and learn to perfect it, then we can advance nicely. All right, we have a little more time for questions if there's any locally or remote. But okay. Ishtadev, Prabhu. Oh, you got to press. Show them how, Governor. Yeah, they changed it. There you go.
Yeah, it's working. What has always perplexed me is, this is fully comprehensible. I mean, we're a lot happier in a relationship with Krishna than we would be with your family members. I can think of a few examples, but remember Badri's remark. He says, the Mormon view of heaven, you're
reunited with all your family.
With all these people, and he says, there's some people I don't want to ever see again in this life or the next one. But before all of this universe started, way back when it was just void and then the Big Bang.
Hold it, Mike.
So, how did Krishna deal with the fact that we didn't exist? There was no loving relationship. Krishna just had this whole place to himself. There wasn't anything there. I can't imagine what the state of mind.
I think you may be mistaken there.
Okay.
We are in a great minority. Most of the living entities like us, they don't come here. There's always plenty of gopis and gopas and everyone to conform with in the spiritual world.
But there was a point when there was nothing.
Huh?
There was a point when
there was nothing material.
Okay.
The spiritual world is eternal. It's never destroyed. It never changes.
Okay, that's where I'm confused.
That's the difference.
Okay, all right. I think you just answered the question.
We're the ones who are constantly merging in and then going into suspended animation for billions of years and then coming out and resuming.
Okay,
that's the problem. Yeah.
All right. No,
so isn't that make it more attractive? We can get to that point.
A lot more sense too. Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, Dimitri has, in the corner there.
I have a question about the languages. The first sound was Om, and then how come that we speak different languages? Is that like a degradation of society that we speak different languages?
You mean how did all these different languages arise?
Yeah, how they happen?
Yeah. It's part of the it goes back to the different modes of nature and the different environments people grow up in. It is said that the original language is Sanskrit. The very word Sanskrit means perfectly composed. Just like that little verse, a little sample verse. I mean, can you do that in any other language? Every syllable counts. There's nothing left. There's nothing. Marodam, marodam, babadasya vibho, marodam, marodam, vadanam, marodam, manugandi, madusmitameta, the whole. Marodam, 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 marodam. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair, but his honey-scented gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. Now you can put a little English poem, but it doesn't quite match the beauty of the Sanskrit. So the language develops according to the varieties of different experience that people have. And what you find in your environment, how you understand how things are going on, So English is a relatively sophisticated language. There's so many words and concepts because, it reflects but it's still bound by material concepts and so many things. So language is a result of how you understand and you want to express to your ideas and so forth. It's very complicated. But the original sound that created it, it's this Om. And what is that Om? Krishna says, I am that Om. I am Om, the sound, the pranava it's called in the Vedic literatures. So there are certain sounds that evoke our spiritual nature. Hare Krishna mantra is most powerful. It is said in the Upanishads. Kali Santaran Upanishad. Kali Santaran Upanishad means the Upanishad that helps us to escape the bonds of Kali Yuga. Yeah, it delivers you from Kali Yuga. So it says, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Natak Padataropaya Sarvavedeshu Drishyate. It says, these 16 names you may search throughout all the Vedas, which are very vast, but you will not find a better way of breaking the bonds to this age, this Kali age, and negating the negativities of this age than chanting these 16 names. This is the most potency. And Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, he appeared about 550 years ago now, he propagated the chanting of this mantra. Not just privately, but all in congregation, Sankirtan. It is so powerful. And so it's a gift. There's no prerequisite. This is so you don't have to be a Brahmin, any age, any gender, anything. You can be a Vimudha, as Krishna described. It doesn't matter. If you simply try this chanting, you'll experience tremendous benefit. And it will attract you to Krishna, make you interested more in what Krishna is all about. And Bob has a question or a comment. You have to just hold it, press and hold. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. I was just a little curious about why the name Hari is chanted twice as much as Krishna and Rama.
It's Radharani. She's more attractive. No.
So so we're really Radharani worshippers.
Well, it's not. The word Rama there, also indicates Krishna as the supreme enjoyer. So they're both. Hare means hara, is a evocative form of hara, which is for Radharani. So what does it mean? She steals away. What does she steal away? Krishna's heart. So there's a lot in the mantra. In fact, everything is there. We don't have to. It's so much, chanting and hearing. But there's a nice verse, and I'll end on this because it's getting late. Queen Kunti, who's a great devotee of Krishna, mother of the Pandavas and Mahabharata. When Krishna is returning back to Dwarka after the war, the Mahabharata war, the Pandavas are reinstituted in their kingdom. Yudhishthira is there. So now is the moment of separation. She knows she won't see Krishna again. It's very moving. So one of her prayers is, she says, one of her statements, she says, Janmaishaya Shuddha Shibi Edamana Madakpama Naibar Hatta Bedatam Dvai Tvama Kinchana Gochara. It says, my dear Lord, you are easily approached, but not by those who are progressively more intoxicated with wealth and physical beauty and mundane education and high parentage, because such persons may chant your name, but they can't chant with deep feeling. They can't really chant sincerely. If you're trying to succeed in this world and gather these things, then you can't feel completely dependent on Krishna, and you can't call out from the bottom of your heart. So that's an important factor. And that's why we try to live as simply as possible. We embrace certain austerities, that are recommended, so that we can feel that Krishna is most important and our relationship with him is most important, and to pray and call out. What does it mean? Hare Krishna, Hare Rama. It says, "Oh Krishna, oh Radharani, please engage me in your service." And we may add, "Please engage me in your service again. I shouldn't have left in the last time." All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari. By the way, I wanted to thank you all for coming. I remember when we used to have 3 people in the class was a lot. Back in the day. I've been giving this class since 1989. So plus we have, who knows how many thousands out there.
PB land.
At least one from Portugal. Haribol Prabhu, wonderful class. Thank you very much.